Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Monday in the Morning, aka Economic Elevation, aka Financial Consciousness. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I'm your friendly neighborhood finance professor. And I hope everybody's doing good today. I'm feeling good. I did not get up in the 5 a.m. club. I was probably more in the 7:30 a.m. club. So that probably means I need to get home to my wife so she can get me back on my routine and my schedule again. Sometimes when you travel, you kind of slip a little bit, but I can't. I don't feel too bad though. I did do my time in the gym yesterday, so you gotta remember health is wealth. Always take care of your health. Anyway, I hope everybody's feeling good today. I was thinking about a few different things, and one of the things that came to my mind was there's this rap beef kind of happening right now between two really talented artists. One's name is 50 Cent, the other one is the rapper T.I. And on my Instagram last night, my Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. I took a moment to talk about this issue because I'm really interested in anything that involves Black people and Black men in particular, particularly with this because this is a heavily financial and cultural conversation that's really happening among millions of people. And so, what I want to do, actually, believe it or not, you're gonna think this is crazy, but I want to go through and kind of give you some economic angles to this, as well as some cultural angles, some angles that that you're probably not going to hear in mainstream media, since mainstream media all they like to do is talk about Black people fighting. They don't really like to talk about building and all the other things that are supposed to be happening in the community. And because I was really fascinated and intrigued by just sort of what all this means and like how this all plays out and what this all looks like. Particularly when you consider the fact that the state of the Black man in America is a big indicator in Black economics, right? If you don't know this, the part of a big part of the reason that Black wealth has not gone up since integration started is because there has been sort of this just this systematic dismantling of the Black man. If you have seen this, let me know if you've noticed this. If you've noticed that there are cultural, societal elements that are designed to make sure Black men are not building, that they're not growing, that they're not creating, that they're not strong enough to actually own and control anything. Dr. Claude Anderson talks about this a lot. He's a strong Black man himself, and I saw him last week. And even at the age of 90, he still talks about how the disruption of the Black community, the Black man, and the Black family has played a huge role in terms of creating kind of a rope-a-dope on Black power. It sort of stops Black power in its tracks. It kind of keeps us from really elevating and becoming the people that we're supposed to be. So this thing between 50 Cent and T.I. is interesting to me, and so just so that you know, I'm not interested in hip hop gossip. That's not my thing. I'm interested in Black economics, Black family, Black culture, and Black wealth. I'm going to dive right into the economic aspects of this because it's truly fascinating. I promise you, you will learn so much about economics after we kind of break this down. So let's talk specifically about the economic side. Then I'm going to actually dive into some of the other cultural elements that are reflected in this beef. Some of the things I talked about last night, and I didn't really articulate everything that I was really thinking. And I thought about it this morning. I said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna hit this. We're gonna hit this. We're gonna hit this. We're gonna hit this." So we're gonna go around the world. So we about to. They got bars. Ti got bars. Boyce got bars. Dr. Boyce got bars too. So here's my bars. First thing, in terms of maybe I can be like the Ti of finance, right? Except I'm not 50 Cent. I'm worth $1.25. That's gonna be my name. My name gonna be $1.25 or MC Portfolio. How about that? All right. Anyway, let's get into it. Let me stop being stupid. All right. So here's the thing. First of all, when you talk about rap beef, it's heavily economic. Brand positioning really is everything. So in a lot of rap beefs, what you're doing is you're fighting for narrative dominance, and that's a type of market positioning. Corporations do this too. Wendy's and McDonald's will start beefing or whatever, and they're really fighting to kind of control the narrative and to be seen as in a certain way. So if you know anything about branding, Ti for many years has always called himself a king, a king, a king, a king. I'm a king. I'm a king. He literally has a song called "I'm a King," right? And 50 Cent, if you remember, his career started from what he had one line, one incident that made him super famous. What was it? Anybody remember? Because he repeated it a lot, over and over again, and over and over. What? Anybody remember? He got shot. He got shot. And I don't remember how many times. How many times did 50 Cent get shot again? I can't remember. What did he say? I got shot two times. Um, I got shot 147 times. Oh, nine times. That's right. I got shot nine times. And that's what you kept hearing. I got shot nine times. I got shot nine times. I got shot nine times. So that also was branding. That was how they separated themselves from the pack. And not just it wasn't just the talent, because there's lots of talented artists. One thing the black community has is we have an oversupply of really talented hip hop artists. We also have an oversupply of like 45, 50-year-old rappers, but the genre is getting older. So you are gonna have you'll probably have some 70-year-old rappers at some point, because just like jazz, if you remember, jazz used to be for teenagers and the teeny boppers, and then the teenagers got older and they just carried the genre with them, and next thing you know, all the jazz artists were in their 80s. So pretty soon you're gonna have some 85-year-old jumping around the stage rapping, throw your hands up, throw your hands up, right? All right, and they go break a kneecap or something. Anyway, number two. If you talk about these two guys from a branding standpoint, you have, and this is huge. This is such a big economic conversation. But you have 50 Cent, who's kind of the solo guy, and then you have Ti, who is the king with the family and the court and everything else. That is big. That's really, really big. And in fact, actually, when you talk about investing, there's a big difference between long-term, let's say cash generation versus multi-generational wealth, intergenerational wealth. And in fact, actually, let's circle back on this a little bit. I need y'all to understand this. Let me ask y'all a question before I get started. So Ti calls himself a king, right? I'm a king, 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 king of the South, king, 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 right? Okay. So let me ask y'all this. Give me a yes in the chat if you agree with this. How many of you think the black community would be better off if black mothers and fathers raise their sons to be kings? How many of you want your son to be a king? How many of you want your husband to be a king? How many of you want to be a king? How many of you believe your daddy was a king? How many of you feel like black men at their best we can be kings? Right? Do you agree with that? Like I want to be a king of something. I don't know, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, how many? Give me a yes. Tell me if more kings, if we have more kings, we'd be better off, right? Go ahead, get that king. Go be a king. Hey, what's up, king? Right? And we call people king, but sometimes people get called kings and they ain't really acting king like. Just like everybody ain't no queen. Stop calling everybody a queen. Because come on, if everybody's a queen, then nobody's a queen, right? If you know what I mean, like you're kind of inflating it's like dollar bills. Like if everybody has $1 million, then there's nothing special about being a millionaire. So you have to have some scarcity in your labeling in order for it to mean something. Like I was last night we were talking about the All Black National Convention, and I was talking to a group in the city that wants us to bring the convention to the city. And I said, I hate banquets where everybody gets an award. I said, if you give everybody an award, then the award don't mean nothing. Like it's like in the 80s when they didn't want to hurt kids' feelings and they gave everybody a damn trophy. That was ridiculous. Come on, stop giving everybody a trophy. Make the trophies mean something. Damn it. Anyway, so if everybody's a king, nobody's a king. So king status must be earned, right? Would we agree? Would we agree? I'm getting somewhere, I promise. Would you agree with me that king status has to be something that people actually earn? Kings tend to be wealthy and powerful and all these other things. So if your son's a king, then he's probably going to have some power and some wealth and things like that. So king status must be earned. So the question here's the thing that's interesting to me. Ti says, "I'm a king. I'm a king. I'm a king." Well, you do know there's a definition of a king, right? You do know that there's criteria. Historically, there have been hundreds of kings throughout time, and there's a criteria there, right? Have you ever wondered what's the criteria of being a king? And this is important. This is important for the men, so you'll kind of know, like, okay, if you want to be a king, what does that kind of look like? For the ladies, if you're looking for a king, like I want to get my king, what does that? How do you know, right? Because sometimes a man will show up saying he's the king, but really he's just the clown. Now the clowns are important. The court jester, they call them the court jesters, by the way. The court jester is important. He makes the king laugh, but he ain't the king. You understand? Like like the funny guy is not the king. The king is the king. So let me explain what a king typically has. This is science here. I'm gonna break this down. Typically, historically, most kings have number one a bloodline. A bloodline. He creates heirs to the throne. So his children, they're not props. His children they're not little liabilities. They're not just little seeds that he done plopped out in 10 different households. His children are extensions of the king's vision. This is generational wealth, by the way. This is what generational wealth looks like. The children are extensions of the vision. When the first Rothschild decided he wanted to build an empire, he talked to his sons and he told his sons a couple things. Number one, your name Rothschild means something. Number two, he said, when you go around the world and you carry the name Rothschild and you explain to people why it means something, you must stick together as a unit. You must have unity as a family. And now the Rothschilds are known throughout. How many of you have heard the name Rothschild? Give me a yes if you've heard that name. Rothschild. If you know wealth, then you got to know the name Rothschild. Do anybody know that? If you don't know this name, look it up. The Rothschilds are one of the wealthiest, most powerful families in the history of this earth. And so ultimately, it's hard to be a king if you have not thought strategically about the bloodline, right? Which takes you to part two of being a king. Second criteria. Typically, historically, a king has a queen. Why? Well, because unless AI has invented a technology that I don't know about, only women are capable of giving birth to the bloodline. So your mere existence as a human being, as a species, is highly contingent upon you having a queen who is capable and willing and interested in helping you to produce a bloodline. If she does not do that for you, then there is no empire. There is some would say you can't be a king because you have no bloodline, you have no heirs. There's nobody carrying the DNA and the genetics to the next generation. And what's interesting is that if you looked at this rap beef, one of the things that Ti does, I don't even know if Ti is thinking about all these things, but I've listened to his music for a long time. I analyze what rappers say, and I get it. I bet you that he probably has thought about these things because if you notice in the rap beef, what's the big difference? The big difference is that when Ti is rapping now, he raps with his family. He'll sit. He did a video where he was sitting there. His mama was on one side, his wife was on the other side. His children are all at the table and they're all eating a fancy dinner of steak and shrimp and lobsters or something, right? So what he's symbol. Remember, hip hop is very symbolic. Hip hop. This is why hip hop can be so powerful yet so dangerous, and this is why you got to be really careful about the fact that there are people who strategically taking control of the hip hop music industry because they want to destroy black people. They want your son. They don't want your son to be a king. So what they do is they use the three biggest tools of the subconscious mind to manipulate the minds of the masses to ensure that black people never build any wealth or any power. And the three greatest tools of the subconscious manipulation are repetition, trauma, and symbolism. Repetition, trauma, and symbolism. Remember, my wife is an expert on the subconscious mind. So what happens in hip hop music a lot of times is you celebrate the trauma. You know, black man got shot. That's why I'm gonna start dancing now because I love to dance to black people. If you listen, anybody remember in real life example? Anybody remember 50 Cent song? It's called Many Men. Does anybody remember how that song starts? Many men wish death upon me, blood in my dog, and I can't see. I'm trying to be what I'm destined to be, and Igga's trying to take my life away. I put a hole in a Igga for effing with me. My back on the wall, now you gon' see. Better watch how you talk when you talk about me, 'cause I'll come and take your life away. So the song starts off with him getting shot. Pop, 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 trauma. And you're like, oh man, that's lit. I love that. I love hearing about a black man getting shot. And then it's like, many men wish death upon me, and I got blood in my eyes, so I can't see. I'm trying to be what I'm destined to be. I'm trying to rise up. I'm trying to be something, and everybody wants to kill me. And but then because they're trying to kill me, I'll put a hole in Igga. He didn't say I'm gonna put a hole in the Jew. I'm gonna put a hole in a white man. I'm gonna put a hole in my oppressor. He said I'm gonna put a hole in an Igga. And this song, for whatever reason, the people that approve music decided, oh, this sounds great. But I guarantee you that if he'd said, I want to put a hole in a Zionist for effing with me, y'all know what the outcome would have been, right? Again, let's go back to this. This is important because this is what's happening to your community. This is why your wealth is not growing. They've gotten you addicted to black trauma. You love that you eat trauma for breakfast. That's one of the tools of symbolism or tools of subconscious mind programming, the programming subconscious mind. And then there's repetition. You're repeating this over and over and over again. That which you repeat to yourself regularly is exactly what you're going to see. That's what you're going to be. That's what you're going to hear. So be really careful about what you repeat to yourself. If you keep saying, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, you're going to see a fat person in the mirror, even if you weigh 90 pounds. That's where, what they call it, body dysmorphia and anorexia comes from. Like this little girl weighs about the same amount as a newborn baby, but she thinks that she's fat, right? So be careful about what you repeat to yourself. Symbolism. So the symbolism in hip hop is really big. It's not the music that gets people hooked. It's the imagery that is associated with the song, right? So a lot of times a hip hop song is predictable. You'll have some guy who's smoking something, drinking something, maybe he's high, he's in a luxury car, he's got a gun over here, some cocaine over there, a big booty lady in a bikini in the back. Oh, and also maybe like did I say a gun? I mentioned, yeah, the gun. Oh, yeah, the gun. So you got, so you see all the elements that every single thing that leads the list and causes of death of black men, everything from the alcoholism to the violence to everything else is all represented symbolically in this music, and because the goal is to ensure that your son is dead by the age of 30. Okay. So circle back, let's go back to Ti and the evolution in terms of what he's doing right now as a hip-hop artist. His symbolism now has transformed. His symbolism in his video is family. No, look, my kids love me. Your kids don't love you, 50 Cent. Your kids hate you, right? Kids, they don't just love me, but they're going to war for their father. They're going to war for the king, right? If you follow this, and if you're not following this, I'll brief you on it, I promise you, because it's a really an interesting lesson in power and wealth, right? And generational wealth, actually. It's quite connected to generational. So he's like, my sons are fighting for me. His son has over 1 million followers on Instagram. So his son is saying, "How dare you talk about my mama? You can't talk about my dad." And he's kind of, he's kind of giving this old man a run for his money, right? And then at the same time, his father's still doing whatever he's doing. So he's what he's saying is he's got, look, I've got intergenerational power here. I've got allies in my family. They love me. We've got legacy here. You don't have those things. So the two things the king has, a bloodline, a queen. Number three, a unified family. This is historically accurate. Typically, a king has a unified family. So if you're splattering babies mamas all across the United States, let me get ask y'all, is that a unified family? Yes or no? Well, if I got a baby over here, some 28-year-old knocks on my door and says, you my daddy. You know my daddy, right? And my seed is splattered all across the Atlantic Ocean. Is that a unified family? Is that a structured family? No. And typically wealth and power in kingdoms involve a unified family, which is a type of strategic planning of your investment. When you invest, you're not just investing money in stocks and bonds, you're investing in people. When a man puts his seed into a woman, you are investing in that relationship, you're investing in that woman, you're investing in your legacy in that way. So literally, historically, this is all just based on the data. Typically, a king has a unified family. So Ti, it's so far he's checking the boxes. He has a bloodline. 50 Cent, I don't know what I mean. He kind of does. He does have kids, but his kids don't like him that much. He has a queen. I've never seen 50 Cent say, "This is my queen." Ti's got that little wife that he's been sitting next to for what, God, probably a couple decades now or more, actually, maybe 30 years, 25, 30 years, right? Three, unified family. His children all sitting around the table, and I'm sure they've had chaos and conflict, but the king actually he's able to keep an orderly home. This involves training. See, this is where your weak sons are losing it. This is where they've lost is nobody trained them on how to maintain an orderly home. And you can't just have an orderly home with an iron fist. You can try, that's part of it, but that's not always going to work. Sometimes it requires a lot of different skill sets to maintain an orderly home. You are a CEO of your last name. You are a CEO of this household. And being a CEO of any organization requires managerial skill that goes beyond just saying do it because I said so. That doesn't always work. That doesn't really work. So this is where the training part really comes in. I like this guy with this big beard named Mr. Jason Wilson. I think that's what he calls himself. I like him. I like this guy because he explains manhood in a really great way, and probably better than me. He says, look, manhood requires you to be whatever the situation calls for, right? Which means you can't just have one-dimensional manhood. You need multi-dimensional, just like womanhood. Same thing. I'm sure we could talk about that in a different day, but it requires a complex set of skills, and these skills have to be taught. And a lot of these boys aren't really taught these things, which is why you have a lot of 55-year-old boys out here. You have a lot of children that are about to hit retirement. That right, that is very unfortunate. But anyway, so the unified family comes in. The king's home is orderly typically. His children, they know who they are. They don't find out by surprise. His household reflects a lot of structure, not chaos. So, unfortunately, this really isn't taught as much to the black male, I think. I know Wilt Chamberlain, for example. Remember, he used to run around bragging about how he has sex with 25,000 women. I know a young lady who was his granddaughter, and his mother was one of Wilt's many, many, many seeds that apparently were not accounted for. So, and there was a lot of trauma, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain that came from the fact that when this girl went to the family and said, "Hey, I'm his daughter too," they said, "Whatever, get out of here, girl. He got kids everywhere. We ain't got room for no more, right?" And so as a man, what you're doing is you're not passing anything productive to the next generation. You're passing on intergenerational pain. So that's just something for I think people to kind of think about. So I'm not judging. I'm just saying that that's just a reality. Okay. All right. The fourth thing that a king has. This is all related to wealth because kings tend to have wealth and power. A king tends to have territory. A king has something that he's responsible for. He has space. Even animals, when females are deciding who to mate with, they pick the animals that control the most territory. So that's why, ladies, you're attracted to men who have property and power and all these other things. So a king tends to govern space, physical space, cultural space, and economic space. Physical space, cultural space, and economic space. So he has a domain. He has a region, some sort of movement or a mindset that is connected to his name. That's another thing that can make a man a king. Ti fits that criteria in my opinion. I would say both of these guys do. Hey, I'm not here to disrespect 50 Cent, even though I do think he's on the short end of this stick. To be honest with you, I think that he's sort of a solo guy that's sort of taking on this sort of very tribal aspect, right? Ti. And again, it makes me think about, like, I love my New York friends. I got a lot of people, a lot of support in New York, Brooklyn, and other places. We go there, the house is packed. I love, love, love my New York friends, and I love my people in Atlanta. I've done a lot of stuff in Atlanta. What happens is when I go to different parts of the country, I see different cultures. New Yorkers, on average, not the stereotype, but you probably know somebody who fits the description. New Yorkers are very intelligent, but they're also very aggressive, which is a good and a bad thing. They're assertive. They go get what they want because they have to fight for it. But sometimes it can be a lot, right? And then also it's kind of a individualized culture. It's like I'm out for self. A lot of the more famous New Yorkers I know aren't really like representing a group or a clique, or they're just like, I'm here for me. 50 Cent, I think, embodies that. You go down south, Ti, and other men and women I know in the South, there's more of a connection to family. There's more of a connection to community, right? And if you look at Ti's evolution as a human, he now represents, he says, I represent the culture, I represent the people, I represent my family, right? So there's more of an aspect of kind of a broader, I live for something bigger than myself kind of thing. And I think this is a thing about Southern culture too, to be honest with you. And also, my Ti reminds me of my father. My father was like that, kind of a street guy that my dad has killed people and all that stuff, but also has like Southern values that sort of say that you live based on certain principles, and if that's your wife, that's always your wife, and if you have kids, those are your kids, and you claim the kids and you claim the wife and you claim something, and that kind of thing, right? The other thing, and in fact, the other thing him and my dad have in common is they're both tiny. So I think that I think there's like a tiny, skinny man complex that pops up too. But whatever, don't tell Tip I said that. But that's kind of, I'm noticing that. All right, number five. Here's another thing a king has. A king tends to have loyal subjects. The respect is not forced. It's typically earned. It's earned through courage. It's earned through consistency, stuff like that. So typically, a king has the backing of a community, people who will defend him when he's not in the room, right? I don't know how much. I'm sure 50 Cent has some of that, but Ti represents that in a very, very powerful way, actually. The next thing, the sixth thing a king has is an economic engine. It's hard to have control of resources, power, and people without some sort of economic engine driving that. That means ownership, that means businesses, that means assets that outlive you, that outlive your music career, all the stuff. here's the thing. This is the thing that people don't understand. And I hate to hurt your feelings on this, but I'm gonna tell you, you live in a punk ass society. You really do. You live in a weak ass punk ass society. I'm sorry if I'm to be cussing, but it's true because this weak ass society tells you that it doesn't matter if a man has money or doesn't have money, and that if you care about that, then that makes you a gold digger and a bad person, and you're just being mean to these poor. You're expecting men to do this and to perform and to do that. I'm not saying that a man is only worth his performance. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that when you have a man who just ain't really trying to get nothing done, ain't out here trying to go make nothing happen, ain't trying to go do nothing, a lot of people would say that's not really, he's not really an asset to the family. Like I get it, you want him to be in touch with his emotions, and we got men out here convinced to go live the soft life and whatever, do what you want, but at some point the baby's gotta eat, and the testosterone that God injected in your body was designed to get you to get up off your ass and go out and get something. And so when we are telling men like, oh no, it's okay, you can quit your job and sit at home and cry all day if you want to, and then the man is surprised that women are not attracted to that. You gotta remember there's like a million years of biology backing her reaction to you. It ain't like she's trying to be mean, but she's scared now. She's like, damn, I don't feel protected now because this guy is not, he ain't fighting for nothing, right? So really, ultimately, the ability to run a kingdom typically comes down to some sort of economic power base. You have to have a power base to have power, typically, and in a capitalist society, especially. But this is true in communist and socialist societies. The ability to access resources, financial and otherwise, is absolutely essential to running a kingdom. You must, and again, it doesn't mean you should feel bad if you're poor, but I'm saying that if you're poor, I think it's okay to have a goal of saying, okay, I'm not going to be poor no more. I'm going to figure this out, or I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try to go learn it. I'm going to go work for it. I'm going to go make it happen. I'm going to go do what I got to do, right? So it doesn't mean you have to be rich. It just means that there has to be an economic engine that is driving the kingdom. A lot of movements in the black community suffered because nobody was sitting thinking about how are we going to get the resources that we need, right? This is why if you are running a household that you want to be kingdom like and have all the independence, sovereignty, freedom. Black people talk, we talk a lot about freedom. I don't know if we really think deeply about what freedom actually looks like and the sacrifice required to have freedom. Freedom requires investment. Freedom requires investment. If you're not invested in something and you don't own anything or control anything, then what in the hell makes you think that you're going to be free? You haven't earned freedom in that way. I'm not saying that you don't deserve it. Sure, I'd love for you, everybody to have it, but in a capitalist society, it don't work that way because at some point there's going to be something that you need. And when you have something you need and you can't get it yourself, you're going to have to go serve somebody who can get it for you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you? If you are, this is why it's really essential. We got to start raising kids to be economically desperate. You got to invest for those babies. You got to teach them things. You got to train them how to hustle and move and make things happen. When you're just dropping them out there and saying, "Hey, I hope a white person adopts you like Gary Coleman from Different Strokes, and maybe they'll adopt you and give you the things I never gave you as a parent because I've never felt empowered to do that." That's not appropriate behavior for any black person that claims to believe in true black power. If there's a belief in true black power, then you must believe in the importance of black economics. And if you believe in black economics, you must believe in the importance of investing and sacrifice. You sacrifice for the next generation, you sacrifice for the future. Moving on. What's another thing that a king has? So Ti always said, I think he's checking the boxes here. And the next thing a king tends to have, historically, based on data, is a king tends to have a code of conduct. A code. Kings tend to move by principles. Certain things like honor, they have boundaries, they have standards. If you don't have a code of conduct, then and you claim to be a king, but you have no code of conduct, then you are just basically a hustler with a crown. That's what you are. You're a hustler. And ultimately, um, codes matter because codes create stability. Uh, they create structure. expectations. People say, okay, I don't like that guy, but he's an honorable guy, and I know that he's going to follow through on what he says he's going to do. I can do business with him. I don't like him, but I can work with him because I know what I'm going to get. So if you're listening very carefully and you listen to the words T.I. said about his interaction with 50 Cent, is he said, we had a meeting, we made an agreement, and then he violated the agreement. He acted like he didn't even remember having the conversation. He said, I can't respect that. That sounds like a king talking, because the king is saying, wait a minute, man, I thought we had a code. I thought, we shake hands and we looked each other in the eye, and now you're doing something completely different from what I thought you were going to do. So really, this is all science. This is typically historically how kings operate. Let's keep going. What else does a king have? Next thing a king has is succession planning. Typically a king spends time preparing for when he's gone. He trains his heirs. He institutionalized his power so that his power does not die with him. So he looks at the next generation and says, okay, son, okay, sweetheart, this is what we have. This is what I built. Give me credit for that. And I built this for you. Now I'm passing this to you, these assets, whatever it is. And the assets are not just money. Just be clear. When you pass an inheritance to a child, it ain't just money. Stop thinking that inheritance is all about money, or that if you have no money, that your kids have no inheritance. That's not true. You're inheriting my relationships, maybe. You're inheriting my skill sets if I train you. You're inheriting my value system, right? You're inheriting wisdom, knowledge, all kinds of things that I'm going to pass down to you that go beyond just the money. But ultimately, there must be succession planning. And I don't know. I go back to the fact that I think we've been trained to have low self-esteem as a community. There's not a lot of succession planning that happens. I talked to a young lady yesterday who spent a very long time explaining to me how terrible her life is, because her aunt just died, and she had to make all the arrangements for the funeral, and her aunt made no succession plan. No plan. I left a little insurance money, but didn't leave any instructions, didn't prepare her for anything. And a year before that, her sister died. This is the trauma that so many of our people are dealing with. Her sister died, and so she's trying to deal with the death of her sister, which is heavy enough. Then her aunt dies, and she has to step in and handle all this stuff. Um, Before that, 2 years before that, the father of her child was murdered. So these things happened to this 24-year-old girl within about a 3-year period. And I'm sitting here with my eyes wide, like, oh my God, okay, let's get you a therapist. Let's talk about that. Because you don't understand. You're just coping, you're surviving, you're in strong black woman mode, and you're trying to handle this. But this is not normal. This ain't normal to have all this death. But then again, in some spaces, it actually is. Like I think when I said, yeah, there are a lot of places where we have kids that are under 25 years old who have many, many friends that have died. And she said, yeah, oh yeah, I can't even count the number of people I know who've been killed. That ain't normal. And this is what the toxic culture has done to our community. This is what they're doing to your kids. And if you know anything about trauma, traumatized people have a hard time doing all these long-term legacy building exercises, because you're crazy. It's hard. So first thing you got to do is you got to heal from the trauma. So anyway, moving on though, the succession planning is really important. Um, in fact, I hate the fact that the term Planned Parenthood has to do with terminating a baby. That's not Planned Parenthood. That's planned termination. You're not planning parenthood to me. You're planning to not be a parent. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying, like, call it something else, like planned termination, right? Whatever. I'm not judging. Do what you're gonna do. But Planned Parenthood to me means I'm gonna be a parent one day, and I got a plan for that. That's what Planned Parenthood is. I tend to put words together and look at the literal definition, and so that means I'm planning parenthood. But if I don't ever want to be a parent because I want to terminate the baby, that's okay. Just do that. Do you? But still, that's not Planned Parenthood. That's planned termination until it becomes Planned Parenthood, right? So, Planned Parenthood to me means planning, being a parent, but also you need succession planning. You need to understand you ain't gonna be here forever. And I think that in fact, when I was talking to the young lady, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing some of this because I'm not gonna tell her name, of course. But she said, yeah, she said, it seems to me like if you know you're gonna die, you would talk to people and give instructions on what to do once you're gone. And I said to her, I said, oh, that's a good point. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you have a daughter, you have a 3-year-old child. I said, are you gonna die? And she said, no. I said, are you sure? I said, because I know I'm gonna die, and he's gonna die, she's gonna die. Every person you know is gonna die. So if you look at it a certain way, we all know we're gonna give me a yes if you're gonna die. Everybody in here that's gonna die at some point, put a yes in the chat. How many of y'all gonna die? I'm looking for somebody in here that's not gonna ever die. I'm looking for one single no. How many of y'all gonna die? So given that you're gonna die, do you know that you're gonna die? Because she said when you know you're gonna die. How many of you have known your whole life that you're gonna die? Give me a yes. Okay, so if you know you're gonna die, then that's when you start your succession planning because you know you're going to die, right? So you can know you're going to die without knowing you're going to die, if you know what I mean, right? Like there's knowing you're going to die and then there's knowing you're going to die, right? And I don't want nobody dead. I want all of us to live at least, we got to hang out for at least another 30, 40 years, right? So maybe AI will invent something that'll help our seniors kind of hang out till the year, till they're 120 years old. But still though, I said that's when you start your succession plan. I said also because tomorrow's not promised for anybody. My sister was right over there. I said my sister does autopsies for a living. I said Tangi, how many 24-year-olds have you cut open in your career? She said, too many to count. I cut open people in their 20s all the time, right? So people die all the time. And sometimes she said that they would die not it's not because something crazy happened. Sometimes they would die literally because they slipped and fell down the steps. Like she was in the coroner's office. My sister doesn't cut open dead bodies. That's what she does. So really, I would encourage you to not think that a succession plan is something that you create once you know the date of your death or how soon it's going to be. You do it now because you could die today. I don't want you to die today, but you could. And so a king has succession planning. A king is thinking kingdom, so they're thinking, how do I make sure the kingdom's good even if I'm not here? That's where wills and trusts and things like that come into play. And just speaking of that, we had attorney Nicole Compton that came in this weekend and spent a whole 2 hours answering questions about trust and estate planning and everything else. If you want to see the recording of that, feel free to join our estate planning group. It's drboycelift.com. Lift stands for Legacy Investors for Tomorrow. drboycelift.com. Also, if you text the word legacy to the number 87948, I'll send you some more stuff. So text legacy to 87948, and you can also join and get access to that recording as well as every other guest we've ever had by going to drboycelift.com. You can share that with your whole family, everything else. The other thing too, by the way, is my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins, is going to be our special guest today in our Stock Market Investors Club. And that is drboycestockmarket.com. If you use the code morning70, you can get 70% off the annual membership if you want to. So the code is morning70, all one word, drboystockmarket.com. And also, I'll put a link if you want to do it, just kind of a monthly sign up. Either way, it's up to you. Let me share this with you. And she's going to actually do the metaphysics of money. So my wife is into psychology, the subconscious mind, and metaphysics. And I used to think metaphysics was, honestly, I ain't gonna lie, I used to think it was kind of like hocus pocus a little bit, but it's not. What I really see is it's deeply connected. She talks about chakras and stuff like that, but it's also deeply connected to the subconscious, right? And there is kind of a quantum aspect of your reality that is, that's affected by the things you believe, the things you say, the people that you're around. So if you want to join, I'm putting a link in here if you want to also join monthly. So you can do monthly or annual. If you go to drboystockmarket.com, use that code morning70 if you want to do annual, or you can just click on that link and take the monthly discount. So let me put that in the chat for you guys if you want to grab that. That's going to happen today at noon. So today at noon, I get a little bit of a day off. So she's going to be the guest for today. All right, now let's keep going. Let's finish up this thing with Ti and the 50 Cent thing. In terms of what makes a king. Like we talked about the things that make a king. I'll go through it again for those that are not here. And this is related to wealth. Kings tend to have power and wealth. To be a king, you should have a bloodline, a queen, a unified family, territory, loyal subjects, an economic engine, a code of conduct, succession planning. What's the number 9? Cultural impact. So a powerful king is able to shape identity, able to influence how people see themselves, And so his name becomes connected to that era, to that story, right? So ultimately, now in terms of loyal subjects would be basically anybody that's in the kingdom that looks up to the king, right? So the subjects might be your family and your children. It might be people that follow whatever you're doing, or that are connected, people that work for you, that beneficiaries of whatever you're doing. Hopefully they're benefiting, right? You don't want an oppressive king. And the last part is number 10, a king has to have a legacy, right? A legacy that expands across multiple generations. And so a lot of kings will measure their success by what survives after they're gone, right? Not just what they did while they're here. So ultimately, this is a way to kind of know the difference. And so according to that criteria, I would say maybe T.I.'s thought about what it means to be a king, right? Maybe that's why he chose that branding, like I'm a king, I'm a king, I'm a king, because from what I see, I do see king-like behavior. Some other examples of economic kings of the past who had that powerful legacy, who did that succession planning. One of the biggest economic kings in American history was a guy named John D. Rockefeller. So the thing about John D. Rockefeller was when he built Standard Oil, he built it as an empire that would control an entire industry. So he ended up having power over pricing, supply chains, everything else. He wasn't just looking for a job; he was looking for power. There's two different things. Jobs don't typically give you power, and if you get any power, it's not your power, right? You are not the power source, you are plugged into the source. So you need the plug to get access to power. If they unplug you, then you have no power. That's different from someone who starts off with a type of systematic thinking that says, no, I don't want to be plugged into the power. I want to be the power source. So Rockefeller, he built systems that outlived him. If you compare him to other families, a lot of families like the Vanderbilts, their wealth disappeared. They were as wealthy as the Rockefellers or close to it at one point. Their wealth disappeared, and Rockefeller's wealth has actually gone up because they have really deep systematic planning of how that wealth is going to live, mostly through the use of trusts and insurance in order to get that done. And he also built institutions like the Rockefeller Foundation, stuff like that. So he was thinking in terms of what you call dynastic wealth. Dynastic wealth is bigger than generational wealth, right? So he built a dynasty and it's very powerful. And it wasn't just like hustle till you die energy. It wasn't just like I'm going to go to work every day and hope that my boss gives me a raise and then I'm going to die at my desk and they're going to replace me kind of situation. It was I want something that's bigger than me, right? So everybody has anybody who has influence over another person, anybody that has people in their life that you care about, nieces, nephews, children, grandchildren, family, etc. That it could be part of your kingdom, queendom, empire, right? So again, not everybody has to be king. I'm speaking on king just because we're talking about 50 Cent and Ti, but also women. I want you to make sure you're learning about this as well in terms of just what that looks like in terms of legacy. Andrew Carnegie is another economic king that lived in America. His kingdom was mostly through steel, and he funded over 2,500 libraries and major universities. So he believed wealth should be distributed strategically for the advancement of society. So kings tend to build civilizations. They don't just build their bank account. They don't just make themselves rich. Their goal is to kind of expand and have reach beyond the individual. Oprah Winfrey is another person that could be defined in a king-like stature. I want to bring Oprah in here because even though Oprah's controversial for sure, and Oprah's obviously not a man, she's operated as a queen in the sense that she could have just built a media career. Remember, Oprah was I saw a video of Oprah in the 1970s where she was just on the local news and she had a big old afro and she was a young pretty girl just kind of doing the news, and she could have stayed with that. She could have just been the best news anchor she could possibly be, worked to get one job after another, but instead she became something bigger than that. She became a businesswoman, a mogul. She became like a celebrity's celebrity, right? She wasn't just a celebrity. She was a celebrity that other celebrities would go to be a bigger celebrity, right? So ultimately, she was able to control narrative. She was able to control influence. She had control of institutions like the Oprah Winfrey Network owned, and she did a lot of philanthropic adventures. You know, the academies and stuff like that. So ultimately, you multiply your influence when you elevate others. This is really important to understand. This is true for anybody who's raising a king, wants their man to be a king. Share this video with anybody in your family that claims that they want to be a king or might be interested in king-like behavior. I don't know if I'm a king or not. I don't believe if I am a king. I don't believe it's my job to tell you I'm a king. I'm not into that. But I do have a tremendous amount of confidence, energy, and commitment to pushing forward certain agendas that might actually appear on this list. And I do have people I'm responsible for. I have people that I influence, and this is right. I'm very aware of it, but I try to minimize the awareness because I don't want the ego to drive the decision making, right? I want to see myself spiritually connected to something bigger than myself because that is my personal selfish way of wanting to live forever. I want to live forever through all of this and all of you and everything that we do. And so maybe I'm kind of in the king like space, but I kind of think the best way for me to be a king is to produce as many kings as I possibly can, as many queens as I can, because then we truly have a kingdom, right? Like I tell you, I don't want to teach students, I want to teach teachers, right? So the best thing you could ever do, if you ever want to give me something, is take the stuff we're doing and talk to people about it. If you believe in this, if this sounds legitimate to you, if this makes sense to you, if this seems solid to you, then embrace it, own it, take it out to the world. Like push that on your kids. Like this is black power to me. Like the black power, I feel it because we get up in the morning and ain't no white man in here telling us what to do. Ain't no white man in here, making us feel bad. There ain't no white folks in here calling us the N word and hurting our feelings and putting us through stress and microaggressions. So this is free. You are free here, right? So I love that. That to me is very exciting. I'm really excited about the opportunity to even be a part of this. So every day I meditate on how I can do this better and more effectively because I really believe we're on to something. I think that this black wealth revolution that's happening now, that's going to be one of these big things that I think is going to really take us to that hyper level. We're gonna do some amazing things with this. So anyway, a couple more things I'll share with this. One more. Let's circle back on the whole presentation of family in Ti's music videos. If you go watch, and you can go to my Instagram if you want to follow any of this, or go to their Instagrams too, of course. But in his videos, Ti always he's been having his family in every single video. And again, I mentioned earlier how family is a critical part of just wealth in general. We've seen this, and in case you don't know, actually, statistics show a few things, and you should write these things down, and you should know this if you want to be a wealth builder. One, married households tend to have higher wealth. I'm not telling everybody to go run off and get married. I'm saying that that is actually a strong economic move. A lot of kingdoms would merge based on wealth. They didn't just view dating as okay, I'm gonna go find the girl with the biggest booty, or I'm gonna go date a man who's over 6 feet tall. It was I need somebody that's going to help us to secure what we have and who we are and secure legacy by us combining forces, right? So you'd have, the daughter of the King of France marry the son of the King of England, and they'd say, okay, we're going to merge. This is a great merger of our two kingdoms. This happens a lot, right? So why? Well, because married families for thousands of years, this isn't just true recently, this is true for thousands of years, married families have higher wealth. So process this for me and think about this, right? Let me ask you this. This is going to be, I think you'll like this. Why do you think most people go to college? Put it in the chat. Why do you, what, if you went to college, tell me why you went to school, why you took all those classes. What were you trying to get? I mean, you got an education, you got to go to some parties, but what was kind of the big goal? The big goal, if you had like kind of like your number one objective, like somebody says, well, why are you an engineering major? Why are you in college here? Instead of just not going to school, instead of, because you could have skipped. What do you think? Write it down. Money, right? Money, right? Cardi B has a whole song like, I like money, I need money, money, right? So you wanted to make more money, right? You wanted, but the thing was, unfortunately, when we were young, that idea of making more money was kind of an ambiguous concept to some extent relative to how precise it could have been, right? Because when you go to school to make more money, a couple things are missing. When you have an 18-year-old that says, well, do you say, why are you in college? Because I want to make more money. A few things that are missing is um, first, like how do you make more money? Right? Oh, well, I'm gonna go to school and get an education, right? Well, that's one problem, right? Because there's 1,000 ways to make money. Y'all do know this, right? There's a lot of ways to make money. School is one of them, but that's not the only one, right? So that's one loss, right? That's a big L right there because you've taken a multi-dimensional space full of an infinite number of possibilities and you collapsed it into one simple dysfunctional reality. Whenever you collapse, this is I'm gonna sound mathematical when I say this, but I kind of gotta say it because I used to teach math at the University of Kentucky. when you reduce the dimensionality of a space, you're constraining the variable to a limited set of options. Do you understand? We used to do equations. We'd have several equations, a bunch of unknowns, and there was something called degrees of freedom in mathematics. Y'all know this. Tell me if you're following this. Degrees of freedom is all the different directions you can go, all the different things you can do. So when you collapse the dimensionality of a system of mathematical equations, you've reduced the dimensionality and collapsed it to becoming a one-dimensional equation, which kills the degrees of freedom. Which means that when you take a black child with an infinite number of possible things he can do and you only teach him one, you have restricted his freedom. You have become his oppressor. Do you understand that? Oppression isn't just what the white man does to keep us controlled. That's sure, that's true. Oppression also starts in the mind. It starts in the mind. When you don't have knowledge and you don't know multiple pathways to achieve the goal, then you've restricted the degrees of freedom, which means that you ain't got too many moves you can make. You're stuck. You are trapped. So the reason this class is called financial consciousness is because one aspect of consciousness is elevating the number of dimensions within which you can operate. You go more expansive. You can breathe better. You feel free. You have options. You have possibilities. Why on earth would we raise our children? Why on earth would we let any sucker train us, trick us into raising our children into falsely believing that there's only one way to get any money in the world? That's incredibly, that's insane. That's sad. It's tragic. It's painful. That's actually the first thing that's interesting about that statement. Like, I'm in college because I want to make money. The other part of that too is they say that I want to make money. What are you talking about when you say I want to make money? Like, does that mean you want to have a good job that pays you well? That's usually what it means. But making money could also mean having like multiple streams of income. It could mean having businesses. It could mean owning assets. It could mean actual wealth, right? Money's not the same as wealth. There are plenty of people that make money that have no wealth. That's true. You've seen that, right? So a clearer definition of what economic success looks like can be very helpful, because it's different when you have a college student who says, I want to get a good job and make a lot of money versus a college student who says, I want to have a lot of generational wealth. Those are two different kids. Those are two different realities, two different sets of choices that will come from those two individuals. Do you understand? Right? So circling back on that, um, one thing that is highly missed in this society is that people don't understand that marriage is one of the tools that's used to build wealth and to get money and to become financially successful. What's interesting is I almost think gold diggers actually understand it better than anybody. And we make fun of gold diggers, but I don't make fun of them. I mean, obviously, if you're selling your body for money, that's not appropriate. But or what you might call a gold digger might just be a person who's financially conscious, who says, I might love you and want to be around you, but I need you to bring in some money so we can be comfortable. I need to feel financially safe. And what's happened is we stigmatize that and make people believe like, okay, you're only supposed to marry for love. You're only supposed to be with him because he's 6 feet tall and the sex is good, and he's really funny or whatever. And it's like, no, sometimes resources do matter. And the same thing is true with men. I would never marry, I would not, I love my wife. Y'all know I love my wife. Fine as the day is long. Most beautiful woman I ever met. I mean, man, oh my God. I saw her the first day I saw her. I said, Lord Jesus, you done dropped an angel out the sky because this lady is gorgeous. But do you understand me when I tell you that as much as I love my wife, I would not marry my wife if my wife was a titan seeking to destroy my assets and destroy my wealth. I could not marry you. No, I'm not going to marry you if you're going to ruin me financially. So ultimately, that statistic that says that married households are better off financially and in terms of wealth than unmarried households, I'm not telling you what to do with that information. I'm just telling you it's a fundamental fact, because 2 plus 2 is always going to be higher than 2 plus 0. That's a reality. However, 2 plus 2 and even 2 plus 0 is better than 2 minus 3, right? So adding another number doesn't mean your final number is going to be higher. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the choice of a relationship, that massive investment that you make, has to be one that's done with extreme due diligence. And I'm just going to tell you one area, one big wealth gap is we're trained to pursue these things highly emotionally rather than sitting, taking a step back and trying to find some more strategic, more logical way of making that decision. Doesn't mean you can't date somebody if they're cute, but at the same time, it can't just be about your feelings all the time. Number two, children from two-parent households are far less likely to live in poverty. That's important. Three, dual income households accelerate asset accumulation. Why? Well, it's easy. I mean, you can buy stuff faster because you got two incomes. Also, you have diversification. You have a backup plan. You have a plan B right there in the house. Four, let's see, divorce also significantly reduces household wealth. The National Bureau of Economic Research finds that divorce often reduces household wealth by 20 to 40%. So when you're a king and you don't have an orderly kingdom and you and your wife have not agreed to make the kingdom orderly, then in the midst of chaos, there are people that make money from all the carnage. When things break down and families fall apart or people start fighting, we know the lawyers always win. And also, intergenerational wealth transfer tends to occur most readily in strong, stable families. Strong, stable families where you've done all the work and all the training required to run that family properly and to keep an orderly household where there is good communication and good planning. Those families don't have a big problem passing on generational wealth, largely because they've decided to see their family for what it is, which is an institution, right? It can be if you want it to be, but like any other asset, assets have to be managed. So if you don't manage the asset, then the asset will be worthless. In fact, it'll turn into a liability. But if you manage the asset properly, that could be your key to wealth. So when you talk to kids about wealth, don't just say something simple like, hey, if you go to college and make good grades, then you're going to do better financially and make more money. No, lay out all the different ways they can build wealth and also help them understand the connection and the entanglement of all the choices in life and how that all ties back to their economic outcomes or economic reality, right? So if you're raising a king, then shit, teach him how to be a damn king. Let him go learn how to be a king. Let him give your son $20 to watch this video, and then have him come back to you and tell you what was in this video. Tell him to take notes. Tell him Daddy Boyce's time. If he ain't got a daddy now, that's okay. I'll be the daddy for about an hour and a half, or not even an hour, 57 minutes. I'll be the 57-minute daddy that will come in and I will set him straight. I know a little bit about what it means to be a king. I ain't perfect, but I know a couple things, and I guarantee you he will be better off as a result of this. Because in our community, let's just be clear, we got too many suckers out here. They trying to make his son into a punk. They're trying to make him into a wimp. They're trying to put him in prison. They're trying to make sure he's dead. And this is not gonna. Black wealth will never go up when you have a community that is in that level of chaos. So I'm gonna be honest with you. When you talk about this racism, white supremacy thing, I don't even engage in the conversations that most people have because, in my view, it's like you're having the wrong conversation anyway. You don't even understand the game that you're playing. The people that are your adversaries are literally controlling how you're choosing to play the game. You will never win a game if your opponent is telling you what the rules are and how you must engage. So ultimately, freedom is much deeper than I think most people understand, and it starts with you taking control of your damn household. You control what happens in your space. You cannot trust these systems to do it because capitalism itself is designed pretty much for exploitation, and the exploitation of the black community is one of the easiest meal tickets that society has. They make $1 trillion every year off of black people, and we don't even know it. So I'm done. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. If you want to join us in class today for stock market investing class, just go to drboystockmarket.com and use the code morning70, and it'll take 70% off the annual membership. And so today, Alicia at noon Eastern is going to do the metaphysics of money. So drboystockmarket.com, use the code morning70, all one word. Also, if you're not on the text list for this class, you can text the word morning to the number 87948. So please text morning 879 to 87948, and you can get an invitation when we join. All right, so have a good day, everybody. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you.